Welcome to the Pub Sports Radio College Basketball Closing Time Show for Wednesday, December the 16th. Ian Cameron and Connor Mack with you as we're ready to break down another college basketball slate. Not a bad day, a pretty good day actually for me overall yesterday. Hopefully we can keep it going today. Connor, how did yesterday treat you, and looking forward to today?
It was just average. I'm a little bummed on games I didn't pull the trigger with Furman, K-State, guns we kind of talked about. That I didn't make a move on. They all won. Were kind of big. So, and then a few tough losses. A good win barely on the under in the Tulsa game. Went under by, and then I missed a point with the Georgia Tech Florida State. And they kind of crumbled down the stretch. They went, what was it, about 9 minutes left, and they didn't score. I thought the over looked really good, and they couldn't score there towards the end. Florida State just kind of took it to them. So those two kind of hurt. But I'm ready to roll. A few good ones, a few crappy, but let's get it today.
All right, this game's about to tip off. I don't know if you have an opinion on it, but we're starting here because it's just about to start. It's Northeastern and Syracuse. It's on the ACC network. Syracuse 17-point home favorites, 147 the total. I did have a bet over the total in this game, 147. Look, this Syracuse team has two things going for them offensively. One, they're playing a lot quicker. This is a much quicker tempo team than they've been the last couple of years under Jim Boeheim. And second of all, their offense looks a whole lot better than it's been the last few years. They're scoring points in bunches. They just shredded Boston College over the weekend. Northeastern's a team that wants to slow it down and get Syracuse in the half court a little bit. But offensively, they're very solid. And one of these early afternoon games, I think Syracuse defensively against a Northeastern team that can execute pretty good offensively under Bill Cohen, I think we might see some points there. Did you have anything on that game? It's just about to tip off.
I didn't, but I'm with you. If I had to play, I'd go, you're right, Syracuse, and who knows they'll keep up. They've shot the ball really well the last few games. Let's see if that stays. I lean over. I didn't love it enough to get it to make a play on it, though.
All right, on we go now. These games are coming up later on. We'll start the same format we'll stick to pretty much every time we do this show. We'll go through every game on the main board, or at least try to get through every game on the main board. And then if we got any opinions and bets on the added board games, we'll mention them at the end of the show. A reminder, this show is going to be Tuesdays and Wednesdays for the next 3 weeks, and then we extend to Tuesdays through Thursdays starting in January with the college basketball closing time show. So let's get after it. We'll start top of the rotation, main board, Texas, San Antonio, Oregon State. Oregon State 8-point favorites at home, 149 the total. Gosh, this Texas San Antonio team, and I'm going to go back to the well again. I'm like that druggie that needs a fix. I'm like that alcoholic that needs a drink. I can't stay away. I got to have it. I got to bet this Texas San Antonio team, even though they have driven me nuts the last couple of years. They've had one of the great backcourts in college basketball when they're healthy. They have an outstanding guard combination. And unfortunately, this team sometimes just does not play up to their level of talent, particularly in that backcourt. Obviously they've struggled defensively. They haven't beaten a Division I team yet. That's the concern. And every time UTSA tries to step up in class against one of these Pac-12, Big 12, you name it, teams, they usually don't perform well. But Oregon State, how can you lay 8 with them right now? They're struggling. They've lost 3 in a row. Their defense is non-existent. Neither is Texas San Antonio's, but UTSA's got the offense to make, I think, this team pay for defensive problems, which I think Oregon State clearly has right now. And Wayne Tinkle, the head coach of this team, has basically mentioned it, that, defense, we've got to solve it. And it's not easy to solve it when you're playing a lot of games in a condensed period of time. So I like the over in this game, and I'm even like the UTSA side here. Meet. We're going with the Roadrunners here, +8 in this one. I think they hang in there. Again, they haven't always stepped up in class well, but this is a team that's not playing very good defense. And it's clear Oregon State's not quite the team they were last year. And I think they're going to struggle to win this game by margin. What's your thoughts here, C-Mac, with UTSA, Oregon State?
I like your look on the over. I think I haven't bet that. I'm going to bet that here soon. The game's a 2 o'clock tip-off, 5 Eastern. I like that look. I looked at it a little bit. I mean, how can you go with Oregon State? I mean, they lost to Portland. I mean, Terry Porter, I don't know how he has a job there. I mean, and then I was kind of – I was bashing him kind of. They beat Oregon State the other night, so that I don't know what that says. But he has and I've gone to Babano. I've gone to a few games over the last few years. My brother lives up there, So me and my nephews have gone to a few, and they can be rough. Yeah, I like the over, and I want to take the Roadrunners this side, but I think I'm going to lay off. But I don't blame you for taking these points here. Oregon State, I don't want anything to do with them until they get going. So, can start winning because they don't look good right now.
Yeah, I like dogging over, and Connor liking the over as well. Nebraska, Omaha, Colorado. Colorado, 22-point home favorites, 142. Colorado's, I don't fault them, obviously, for losing to Tennessee. We know Tennessee's a really good team. I think Colorado could be pretty good this year. They should win this game, but I don't want to lay 22 on finals week, exam week for these teams in a sterile environment. There's no home court edge to be found. I find underdogs. Now, again, this year's different because the home court edge is already less because there's no fans. But in a normal season, around exam time, December, right before conference play, I often like to look at road underdogs because the home teams are distracted. The home teams have the exams on their campus. The practice time is limited and less than it usually is. So I think Colorado certainly, as manpower-wise, can outman Nebraska, Omaha. They got drilled by Creighton. If you want to compare, and if they get drilled by Creighton, Colorado could run away with this. But in this particular spot, I wouldn't want to lay it with Colorado. I would make a small case, not a game I bet, but I would make a small case here for the Omaha side in this one. What's your take here, Connor?
Yeah, I'm on here. I'm on Omaha. I think it's way too many. I've been with Buffalo on their side, all year. I think I'm 4-0 with them. I bet against them in the Tennessee matchup, but that was it. So I like the spot here. I think it's just way too many points. Omaha's getting back a couple of their players too today. So I think I think they can score enough to stay in this game. Colorado, I had them the other night, and they just killed Northern Colorado. That was just a bludgeon. So I got to take 22 here. I think they can hang around. So I've got them plus 21.5, actually. Is what I'm going to get. All
right, like in the Nebraska side, we'll give you 22. There's 22s out there, so we'll definitely give you the plus 22 with Omaha. Toledo and Marshall. Marshall 7.5 point home favorites, 153 the total. I am not fading this Marshall team. I like them a lot. I was high on them coming into the season. Dan D'Antoni's been there for years. Remember, he took Marshall to the tournament a few years ago. Really good team, and this might be one of the better all-around teams. We always know they shoot threes. They're very efficient offensively. They play lightning fast, tempo-wise. Marshall. Fun team to watch. Always love watching Thundering Herd games, but they have a better defensive team this year, and I think that could be the difference here in this game. They're a much better defensive team, in my opinion, than Toledo. Toledo has really had a hard time getting stops at the defensive end of the floor. I think that's the difference. Marshall can come at you in waves offensively. So I'm looking at favored and over here, and Marshall's a team I've cashed a couple overs with. I was on the over in the Marshall College of Charleston game just recently, and that game flew over the total with plenty of room to spare. That's where I'm going here. We're going to lay the 7 with Marshall and also go over the total. I got 149, and I bet it early because I figured it had to go up with the way Toledo's struggling to get stops. Toledo's pretty good offensively themselves, and sure enough, this total did get whacked up significantly. 149 all the way up to 152.5 now. So I agree with that move. Over for me, and I would lay the points with Marshall. Connor, what are you doing here with Toledo Marshall?
I think you're right. Marshall's looked great this year. They can really score. And the difference you were saying, they've been playing a little bit better defense. I'm not going to get to the window here. I've been on Toledo this year, and they've covered a few games. They played a few duds, had a few good ones. This one was really tough, but if I had to go, I'd lean with you here. I'd lay it with Marshall. I think they can cover this number. I didn't love it enough. I'm not going to bet this one. It just wasn't just enough. Toledo, I could see just maybe covering this. They got the number spot on here, I think, in this one.
Pittsburgh, Miami, ACC game now coming up next. This is a huge line move, and if you see the injury situation for Jimmy Larinaga's Miami team, you understand why that is. Miami, yeah, it's rough. I mean, this is a rough injury report right now for the Hurricanes. They opened 2.5 point home favorites, 3-point road chalk now are Jeff Capel's Pitt Panthers. The total 133 here in this game. Yeah, it is rough in terms of injuries right now. You're talking about Chris Lykes, of course, has been injured most of the season, has missed multiple games. Now Cameron McGusty is also going to miss. There's 3 others also that are questionable and or doubtful to play. This is just a shorthanded Miami team coming into this game. Yet a Miami team that plays, all heart, all soul, digs in at the defensive end. That's what brought them back against Purdue. An incredible comeback win last week in the ACC Big Ten Challenge for this Miami team. But obviously when you're shorthanded like they're going to be going into this game today against Pittsburgh, it's a concern. Now, normal circumstances, you'd see this point spread and you'd say there's no way Pitt should be favored over Miami because when fully healthy, these two teams, Miami's the better team. But this is obviously a completely different circumstance. Injuries are mounting for the Hurricanes going into this game. I do think now there's a little value on Miami now +3, but they're just so banged up that it's a game I'm totally staying away from altogether. I think I lean under the total just a little bit, but it's not a strong opinion. Side or total for me, but the smallest of leans to the under. That's it for me with this one. Connor, how about you? Pitt, Miami.
Yeah, you were nailing it. These injuries have got them. I just don't like the flip. I don't know if I'm not gonna bet it. I like the under. I'm gonna bet that one. I'd go with Miami. I know, man, they don't got a bench. All these players just out. It's really tough, but they're at home. I take the 3 with them as well. It's just a lean. But I like the under. I'm on the under here.
All right. Yeah, I wouldn't talk you out of that. Looking at the under there. Next up, San Diego, Cal Poly. San Diego 6.5-point road favorites here, 145 the total. Cal Poly is horrendous, absolutely awful. This is a bottom tier team without a doubt in their conference this season. No question about that. They've started off extremely poorly. This is absolutely a spot, in my opinion, where we can expect them to struggle. And for San Diego, look, it's no great shakes to lay 6.5 with them, but they're starting to show, like they've had a tough schedule. They played UCLA, they've been battle tested. They played Nevada the other night. And I thought they played pretty good. I thought they definitely showed positive improvement and strides forward in that game against Nevada. If not for the fact that they went cold shooting the basketball in the last 2-3 minutes, they might have beaten the Wolfpack in that game the other night. But I'm seeing some improvement from this Toreros team. They're a middle of the pack team in the West Coast Conference. Cal Poly is a bottom tier team. And the quotes from San Diego indicate they took a little bit of confidence away from that game against Nevada, even though they fell short, that things are starting to come together. And if they can build on that, they might be able to get a double-digit win here, in my opinion. I'm going to lay it with San Diego. I think this is they played some tough competition. They've cut their teeth on a difficult schedule. Now they're taking a step down in class just as they're starting to get some traction and starting to play better team basketball. So I'm going to go ahead and lay these points here with San Diego because if they play well, I think they can get a double-digit victory because there's nothing to like right now about this Cal Poly team. Connor, what do you think about this one?
I'm with you, dead on. Yeah, this Cal Poly team is just not good. And like you said, I don't think San Diego is that great. I had UNR the other night, and man, they took them. That was very close. Kind of at the end, gave it up. And I like it. Still got 6.5. Like you said, I think they can win this game by 10. So I'm with you here with San Diego with the Turtles. So give me San Diego minus 6.5.
Mercer Bears, one of the best point spread teams, I think, in all of college basketball since like the midway part of last year. They have been unbelievable covering numbers. Can they cover again here? 4.5-point road underdogs at Georgia State, 155.5 the total. This is a rematch, by the way. These teams played each other earlier in the season, and I was on Mercer in that game against Georgia State, and Mercer ended up getting the victory against Georgia State. Look at the difference, though. Georgia State, I believe, was favored on the road in that game by 3, and now Georgia State's favored by 4.5 in this game at home. So the value is not there with Mercer in this game quite as much as it was when they met earlier in the season. And that's because now people are realizing Mercer's a really good basketball team. Georgia State is too. Georgia State's got some good guard play. Remember, they beat Georgia Tech earlier in the season. So this is a good basketball game. And I would still lean to Mercer, but same season revenge angle in play has kind of kept me, a little bit off this bet. But I would lean a little bit to Mercer here in this one, even though Georgia State's in revenge for losing to Mercer in the previous meeting this season. Connor, what do you think here in this one?
This one is one I haven't bet because I'm with you. I was with Mercer in their game before, and even the whole thing with, they're not in conference rivals, but they're in-state rivals, and they're playing again. And we talked about usually the other team. I just don't think Georgia State should be favored 4.5. If I haven't bet this, I've thought a lot about it. If I did, like if I was you, I'd go with Mercer. I'd take the 4 points, the 4.5. because even if I don't know if Georgia State can cover. Maybe they get the win because we've been talking about all these second games. It's so hard to beat a team twice, and we've seen it all season. So I'd lean Mercer, but I don't think I'm gonna. This one's really I've been thinking about a lot today. So I lean Mercer in the 4.5.
All right, so you're leaning with the Mercer side.
So are you betting
as well?
Did you say? Are you taking Mercer or no?
No,
You're
I'm
gonna stay off.
not this one. There's at some point. I mean, I'm already high volume on college basketball on a daily basis. I had 20 bets yesterday for that card, and I'm trying to trim some of the fat at least. And this was one.
Yeah.
Mercer, I think, is good enough to hang in, but I didn't feel like I was getting the same value I got with Mercer the first time around when they played Georgia State. We go to the Big Ten now for the first time. Ohio State taking on Purdue. Big Ten matchup here. Purdue 5.5-point home favorites there in West Lafayette. Total 133.5. This game should be low scoring. In my opinion, I would definitely lean under the total. Again, I don't bet a lot of unders, but if I was going to, I would look at one potentially in this game. When you look at this Ohio State team, undefeated on the season, you could argue that Illinois State, UMass Lowell, Morehead State, not great competition, Cleveland State, but they did beat Notre Dame. They beat Notre Dame on the road, 90-85, so you got to give them credit for that. Purdue, on the other hand, they've had some up and down results. I mean, they beat Liberty, which was a nice win. They lose to Clemson, 81-70. They piss away the game against Miami, just a horrendous loss for them against the Hurricanes, where they had a huge lead at halftime and they couldn't keep it. Miami comes all the way back. Their offense goes ice cold. And here's the issue with Purdue, especially this year. And I love the big guy from Canada on that Purdue team. He is a huge. I mean, he's looks like a giraffe out there on the basketball court. Edey, he is absolutely outstanding for this Purdue team. But sometimes I don't find their perimeter game as strong as it used to be.
Yeah.
They've had some really good guard play in years past. I don't think they've got that same level of backcourt firepower that they've had in years past, and they're having trouble at times covering as favorites here. And the question is, I don't quite know how good Ohio State is, and I don't know if I want to take just this few amount of points with Ohio State. So I'm kind of caught between a rock and a hard place here when I analyze this game. I don't really love the Purdue side, but I don't know if I love the matchup either for Ohio State, because the one thing with them is they're very small in the paint, and that Edey, who can basically probably his day inside the paint just with putbacks and layups and slam dunks over what could be a smaller team size-wise in the low post. So I guess if I had to, I'd lean Purdue, but it's a game I'd rather just watch and observe to see where these two teams are at, because I'm not very confident in my power rating and my opinion of either of these teams right now. What do you think, Connor, with Ohio State, Purdue?
Yeah, I've seen people already today, and Czar and Marlin. You can make an argument kind of here for both sides. The numbers right there at 5. Other people like Ohio State, maybe money line. One thing with Purdue, last year, they were one of my worst teams betting on. They were so erratic. They were a lot better at home, really not good on the road, and very sporadic shooting. Some nights they couldn't, hit it, put the biscuit in the basket, as you were saying the other day, and they, just couldn't hit anything. At home, they always play better. So this one was tough. This was like the Mercer game that I might lay off. I guess I'd lean a little bit Ohio State, but these Big Ten home teams have played really well and won the last few years, I'd say, the last 2-3 years. Kind of a difficult spot. There's arguments for both sides like you just talked about. I don't know if I'm going to get there. If I had to, I'd take Ohio State. I've thought about it getting to 5. But this is like a home game win. Purdue could win by 10. Maybe. Depends on what Purdue team we're going to get, which is just, I don't know. So early on, I got to pass here.
Yeah, first conference game for both of these teams as well. Always a good thing to just sit back, watch, and see how they fare. South Florida, Cincinnati. Cincinnati, 8.5-point home favorites, 132, the total in this one. I'm on South Florida here. I think it's going to be close. I know they lost to Wofford in the weekend, but Wofford's a pretty solid team. Cincinnati kind of outperformed expectations. They beat a solid Furman team. Alabama was life and death to beat that same Furman team last night. They lost to Tennessee, obviously, on the weekend, Cincinnati, but a lot of people are going to lose to Tennessee. And I thought they were admirable and defeat the Bearcats in that game. John Brannon, of course. John Brannon's a good coach, so maybe Cincinnati, I've got to stop disrespecting them. So the way I'm going to approach this is if Cincinnati beats me one more time with me trying to bet against them, I may stay off betting against them for a while. But I do think this South Florida team definitely will be a little bit improved. Again, they're in a tough AAC conference. I'm not saying they're an upper tier team. They're not in this conference, but can they get to the middle of the pack from being a bottom feeder? That's the kind of improvement I'm expecting here with this South Florida team. Just to go from a bottom feeder to competitive, and I think they can be that kind of team this year. So, and plus Cincinnati, you got them coming off that big game against Tennessee. It may be difficult for them to win this game by a significant margin. So for me, I took South Florida. I got +9. I still endorse it here at +8.5. Connor, what do you think here? Bulls and Bearcats.
Yeah, this is a line kind of right on. I'd agree with you. I'd go with South Florida. I just think the line's a little bit inflated. And you said Cincinnati, I thought would be a little more down. They played pretty well. I mean, they lost to Xavier. They beat Furman. They were in that game with Tennessee, at Tennessee towards the end. The score really didn't they lost by 9, but they was, 3 or 4. Tennessee made all their free throws, basically. They kind of, Tennessee went, Cincy couldn't, score in that last minute. So this is a difficult one. If I had to, I didn't bet it. I'd lean with South Florida here. And I'd lean the under a little bit. Cincy sometimes can't score. I lean a little bit on the under 132, but the number is low, so just a lean.
What's funny is that when he first got hired at Cincinnati, John Brannon, to replace Mick Cronin, who obviously went to UCLA, I thought for sure he's bringing that faster pace. He's going to get Cincinnati playing high-flying basketball from Northern Kentucky, which is where he coached before that, and really hasn't happened. I mean, he's tried to keep the Cincinnati mantra of, be physically tough, slow it down, half-court basketball, good defense, and score when you can. And that's basically playing that same style. So he's adjusted his style, not forced his style on the players in the program. So you got to applaud him for that, going with the flow, so to speak. Memphis and Tulane, Memphis 10-point road favorites here, 137, 138 the total in this game. I always get a little leery laying double. Memphis, there's been something with this team. They recruit well. They're extremely talented, but they're a dumb basketball team sometimes. Bad shot selection, too haphazard with the basketball. I don't know if Penny Hardaway, X's and O's wise, is the greatest coach in the world by any stretch of the imagination. I know he can recruit, but adjustments in games and X's and O's, I think he leaves a lot to be desired. And I think Ron Hunter's a flat out better X's and O's coach than him. And again, he's got a big job ahead of him here at Tulane, but Georgia State, every other program he's coached in the past, he's gotten them better. This Tulane team, I think, has a chance to get better as the season goes on. And I think style-wise, they play the zone, which can really, I think maybe frustrate Memphis a little bit, relies on perimeter shooting more than some other teams. Tulane might be worthy of a bet here, hanging around at +10. I just think Memphis, to me, is not really clicked. They're coming off the tough game against Auburn over the weekend. Sure, they want to bounce back, and talent-wise, are they 10 points better than Tulane? You could argue that, but this Tulane team's extremely well coached. There's not many games that they're not prepared to play, and it is a conference opener, and you're laying doubles on the road in your conference opener. That's not necessarily the profile I'm looking to back. So I'm going to be on Tulane here, getting doubles at home. I'm riding the green wave. Connor, what do you think here? Memphis, Tulane.
Yeah, this one circled. Memphis, yeah. Penny Hardaway sure seems like he can recruit, but his coaching is just been up and down, and the team is up and down, erratic. I had Auburn, +6 and the money line the other night. I mean, just weird, lose to Western Kentucky, VCU. I don't know, that Central Arkansas game, they were like 25-point spread. They didn't cover it. I just don't love it. And I think the spot, I wanted a little more with Tulane. Wish it was 13, but I'm going to have a small bet on Tulane as well, getting 10 here.
All right, liking Tulane a little bit here, +10 as well. Next up, we've got Cal Baptist, Arizona. We got the Wildcats, 22-point home favorites, and this one, 148 the total between Cal Baptist and Arizona. When you look at it with these two teams, with Arizona this year, obviously we know it's been a challenging last couple of years. They've had the sanctions against them. They've had all kinds of issues thrown at this Arizona Wildcats team. that they've had to deal with. They don't have that same high-level Pac-12 program that they've had in years past. Nevertheless, it hasn't always been pretty, but they've managed to start the season at 5-0 so far, this Arizona team. And to me, they've played a little bit faster in terms of pace. Their pace numbers have gone up offensively. They've been pretty good. And that's something you want to be aware of because they're playing faster. Their offense has been capable. And now they're playing a Cal Baptist team that's been horrendous defensively. Cal Baptist is down around the 330 mark in terms of defensive efficiency, 326 in the country in defensive efficiency. Not very good. This is a game where probably Arizona can, run up the point total as much as they want to. And Cal Baptist actually plays pretty quick as well. They're much better offensively than they are defensively. And we've seen Arizona, at times this year, especially with a big lead, they just slack off a little bit on defense. So to me, from a side perspective, it's tough. I would probably lean slightly to Arizona, but they've not always been reliable. And again, this goes back to final exam week for the home teams. Be leery of laying big points in these spots, but I do like the over in this game. 148 the total. I think it can get into the 150s. Arizona plays, maybe they're going to change in Pac-12 play. They'll slow it down because Sean Miller's done that in the past. He lets the guys go up and down, run and gun a little bit on conference play, and then when the Pac-12 season starts, he'll slow it down. But I think for now you're seeing clear evidence. Arizona's playing a little bit faster tempo-wise and certainly been able to score points offensively. That should come no problem to them here against a horrendous Cal Baptist defensive team. So I think the game goes over the 148. Connor, did you get involved here with Cal Baptist, Arizona?
Yeah, I'm with you. I like the over here. I think it gets over. And I'm going to take Cal Baptist in the points here, I think. Like you were talking about Arizona, kind of hanging around, letting teams not covering. I know it was the first game, but they hung in there with Southern Cal Baptist. Was at 95-87. I think there's a lot of points here, and I think 22.5 is a little too much. So I like both. I'm going to take the over and take the points.
All right, taking Cal Baptist plus the points, 22.5, 23 in some spots, and also over 148, the best number there. Villanova, 13-point home favorites, 132 the total. This is a really tough game because it's a lot of points to be laying with Villanova, but they are superior, potentially much superior to Butler. I don't think this is one of Laval Jordan's better Butler teams by any stretch of the imagination. I think they've had better squads than in past seasons. And we have one game of sample size for Butler this year because, again, they've had their games canceled due to COVID-19 issues. And we've seen Butler play once this year. It was way back several weeks ago against a really poor Western Michigan team out of the MAC. And they were life and death to escape with the victory. I think they were 18-point favorites in that game, and they barely beat Western Michigan. That's it. And if you're going to judge Butler on that game, there's no way you can back Butler here because if they play like they did against Western Michigan here tonight against Villanova, they're going to get run out as far as I'm concerned. And to me, they've been able to hang their hat on defense. And the way they let Western Michigan easily score, we're talking about a bad MAC team scoring points pretty easily against Butler in that game. They're just very lucky, Butler, that they scored enough against a bad Western Michigan defense to survive with the win. That's going to be trouble. Who knows if the practice schedules have been altered, they're thrown out of their rhythm, haven't played in weeks. No, there's no way I would endorse Butler here. It would be Villanova or pass for me. But again, a 13-point home favorite, laying this kind of chalk in a conference opener, it's not necessarily something I'm looking to do. But if you had to make me choose, I would lay with Villanova here before I take it with Butler. What do you think, Connor?
You nailed it. This one, I don't want anything to do with it. But if I had to choose, same with you. I go with Villanova. The number's a little high. Butler just right now, all the problems kind of they have, they can't score, I don't think. It's just 13.5. I don't love it. And I like Villanova. I've already took them a few times this year. And this total's low, but who knows if Butler, can score. This is one, I just don't love it. I get why people are on Villanova to cover. But I'm going to pass on this. This is one I don't need to, push today. I'll just get a pass.
Yeah, I don't blame you there. This is one of those games where, again, Villanova would be the choice for me if I had to make a bet. But the good news is you don't have to make a bet on every single game. That's for sure. Samford and Troy now in our next matchup. We've got Samford, 2.5-point road favorites here, 148.5 the total in this game. Samford, one of those teams that's usually pretty solid when you look at them, playing, of course, in that SoCon under Bucky McMillan. It's a team that, when they step up in class, they're capable of competing, kind of like what they did against Georgia. They only lost by 4, 79-75 in that game. They have a really nice win against Belmont as well on their resume, 96-83. We know Belmont's always a contender in the Ohio Valley Conference every year. Troy, of course, I think they made a good hire. Scott Cross, remember the years he coached at UT Arlington, did a really good job with that program as well. And it started out a little up and down for Troy early in the season. They beat Western Carolina, but they had some losses too. But UAB is a good team. No shame in that loss. Texas Tech, absolutely no shame losing to them. Wilmington, that's the loss that kind of stands out. It's not a great loss by any stretch. They bounced back, but against two Division II teams, North Alabama and Central Baptist. But I think down the road, I just don't know if they're ready to beat Samford yet, because I think Samford's right now the better of these two teams. But again, I'm not actively looking to bet against Troy because I think they're going to get better as the season goes on in the Sun Belt. I like Scott Cross being the coach now here with this Troy program, and he has got a track record of getting the team and the program better over the course of time. So it's a pass for me. I just don't know if Troy has gotten good enough, fast enough yet be able to win a game like this. So that's why I'm staying off. I would lean Troy because I think there's a little value on their side, but it's a pass for me. What do you think, C-Mac, Samford, Troy?
Yeah, I like what you're saying. I think over time Troy gets better, but in this spot, I'd go with Samford here. Right now, I think they're just the better team, playing better basketball. Troy will get better over time. I think it's a small number. I'd go with Samford in this spot, and maybe look towards the over. Samford plays at a quick pace, scores a lot. So maybe look towards the over, but it's pretty high at 148.5. So.
Yeah, I agree with that. And that's what kept me off the over, because the Samford is very fast paced. Unfortunately, Troy at home, and sometimes I like to see the team dictate tempo. Troy is pretty slow, and they're not exactly exquisite offensively. They can go through droughts, and that's why I didn't bother with the total here in this game. Ole Miss and Middle Tennessee State. This is the Kermit Davis Bowl, if you will, tonight in this one, as he goes back to his old stomping ground in Murfreesboro to play the team that, of course, he coached for a very long time, led them to the NCAA tournament. Remember, they knocked off Tom Izzo's Michigan State Spartans. I remember because I was on Tennessee in that game. I didn't expect them to win outright, but they did that day. And now Kermit Davis with Ole Miss will look to defeat his old program, the one that gave him, put him on the map as a head coach. We've got Ole Miss 13.5-point road favorites here, 135 the total. This is one of those spots I might look to lay the 13.5, because I know you shouldn't say win one for the Gipper, but the Ole Miss players know that, hey, this guy coached here. Would be nice to kind of beat this team and take care of them. And if they come focused and ready to play, they might, because Middle Tennessee's definitely got some issues so far this season. They have not played the kind of basketball I thought this team would start to improve. I actually thought, to be honest with you, this team had made a pretty decent coaching hire as well this year, but it really hasn't panned out for Ole Miss so far this season. The results haven't been good. They've been absolutely terrible defensively. They have played a little bit faster and been capable at times offensively, but for that reason too, I might look over the total. But from a side perspective, and again, this is another one of those situations where it's the road team. I'd rather have road favorites on a week like this, exam week, than home favorites. Ole Miss, if they're focused, and something tells me with Kermit Davis having those ties to Middle Tennessee back in the day, they might here in this one, and certainly they have on paper, they outman this Middle Tennessee team. So I would actually, this is one of those road favorites that I would actually look for tonight, is laying it with Ole Miss in this game. C-Mac, what do you think? Ole Miss, Middle Tennessee.
I'm with you. I've thought about this one. I'm going to wait a little bit. Maybe I'm going to look into a little bit more, but I'm with you. If there was a road team laying a big number, like you said, Middle Tennessee State's got some problems. They're, not, the program is not doing well right now. I just thought 13's a little high, so I don't know if I'll get there. They should take care of business. It's one of those weird when it's at 13, especially on the road. You're just like, it's either they kind of win by 20 or it could get sloppy and there's a 10-point win or something like, you know what I mean? It's right in that weird area. So I don't know. I'm gonna wait maybe later. But if that's the side I'd be on, would be Ole Miss, definitely in the lead.
All right, definitely a lean to Ole Miss. All right, we keep on going now. It's Northern Colorado taking on the Denver Pioneers. We've got Northern Colorado, I should say, 6-point favorites here on the road, 141.5 total in-state games. So I don't really love laying the points. I would lean Denver. Problem is, I don't have a great feel of just what kind of team this Denver group is. With Rodney Billups here, 1-3 start. Their only win was to Regis College. 82-66. That's it. I mean, Riverside lose by 20. Wyoming lose by 22. Dixie State at home. And that disappointed me because I had the over in that game and it fell just short. 73-70. Denver is playing faster, but man, do they take some bad shots. Man, do they just struggle sometimes offensively. And we have seen that a couple of times. The fact they could only put up 63 against Riverside, could only put up 61 against a Wyoming team that's, got a new coach and some new a lot of loss of players from last year. 70 to Dixie State, who have, a new entrant into Division I basketball. So, yeah, I want to bet Denver over the total, but, I've now seen them 3 games in a row struggle to put shots in the basket. So, to me, I would lean over the total here, but I'm going to stay off it now after getting burned by it on Saturday in that game against Dixie State. As much as I think I would look in these in-state games to take points, Northern Colorado, even though they lose Jeff Linder, who's a great coach there, and he's now coach at Wyoming, Northern Colorado is a team that they don't have much on their resume right now, but to me, they're a team that's always going to be pretty solid defensively because they were last year. Jeff Linder really got this team to play good defense in a conference, the Big Sky, that sometimes there's not a lot of good defensive teams. They did that last year. They're pretty solid defensively this year, and if Denver's going to go through shooting woes like they have the last few games, then there's a chance here we might get a Northern Colorado win by margin. So those are just the thoughts. You're basically hearing, as I'm saying this right now about this game, it's basically the handicapping process running through my head, and I'm basically saying it verbally to you right now. And hence, that's why I came to the conclusion that I'm going to pass on this game. What do you think, C-Mac, Northern Colorado against Denver?
Yeah, both these teams haven't played really anybody. We just saw Northern Colorado get blown out by Colorado. Both teams have played Regis, as you just talked about, and they both beat Regis by about 20. So I have no good feel either. If I had to bet, like we said, I'm passing here, but I would take the 7.5 points. But you never, in just a weird spot, I'm just going off. Haven't seen enough of both. They haven't played really anybody and enough. Colorado Christian, and they played Regis. So, and then Denver, kind of the same. So, of course, I lean Denver with the points, but this was one I got to pass. I want to see both teams a little bit more. Too much small sample size on both.
Yeah, exactly. They haven't played a ton of great competition, either one yet. Oral Roberts, Oklahoma. We've got the Sooners 16.5-point home favorites, 159 the total in this game. Should be an interesting one because you've got Oklahoma, who are expected to be one of those teams contending this season in the Big 12. They've gotten off to a 3-1 start to their season. The one loss, of course, coming against Xavier in their last game. Just an ugly performance against the Musketeers. They just atrocious, really, on the defensive. It was one of those games, though, for Oklahoma where if you watch that game, Xavier was just in a zone offensively, couldn't be stopped. They bounced back strong against Florida A&M after that. They also have wins against UTSA and TCU, so pretty couple of decent wins here for Oklahoma. But I have trouble betting against Oral Roberts in this price range. Oral Roberts has been one of those competitive teams under Paul Mills this year. They did lose by 27 to what we're finding out now is a very good Missouri team, but they lose by 5 to Wichita State. They lose by 5 to Oklahoma State. They were in both of those games against some pretty solid competition. They're a tough team to lay this many points with. I would look to Oral here, getting 16.5, 17 here in this game. Again, you've got an overvalued home favorite in exam week, laying points with home favorites in this price range. We've talked about teams in this situation already. Arizona, and others go on down the list. Not interested in laying points with teams in this kind of price range. And Oral Roberts has shown can hang in there and compete against some of these better teams on their schedule. So I like Oral here, getting 16.5, 17 in this one. What do you think, C-Mac?
I'm with you. I like Oral Roberts. They can score here. And this one, it's at 160. If it was a little lower, this still could get over the total, maybe. I don't know if I'll bet it though, but I lean that way. I think this easy teams can be in the 80 for sure, in the 80s. I like Oklahoma, and they are at home, but this is too many. I just think it's way too many. And who knows, they could win. But if Oral Roberts is hitting their shots, their guard play, they can move it around. I think they can stay within the 16. This is one that kind of jumped off right away. I thought, wow, this is too many. If Oral Roberts comes to play, they can cover this number, just like you said. So
yeah, I like Oral, and I'm with you on the over. I lean that way, but it's pretty high, 160. Once totals start to get to the 160, then I start to unless it's Gonzaga, because I did bet Gonzaga over with Auburn. I think, and it was one of those teams was 160, and I got there, and it still went over. So Gonzaga is one of those teams, but there's not many teams I'm willing to bet an over that's that high. Talking about 160, but I don't want the under at all when it comes to Oral Roberts and Oklahoma. Again, same old issues with Lon Kruger's team. Can you get to stops defensively at a consistent rate? And certainly they didn't do that against Xavier. And Oral Roberts, as we said, pretty good offensively. So let's see if they can step up on D. Still have doubts and questions about that. East Carolina, SMU. We go back to the AAC here in this conference matchup. SMU 12-point home favorites, 141 the total in this game. Really like this SMU team. Gotten off to a solid start. Now you could say they hadn't played anybody up until Saturday when they finally did play someone, and they played them in their building. That was a really good road win against Dayton, 66-64. But again, buzzer beater win for SMU. And now back home, and I said it was, again, a broken record. Exam week. Home courts are already devalued. Your practice schedule is altered. Laying points like this, I don't necessarily love it. Is East Carolina under Joe Dooley? Of course, came here from Florida Gulf Coast, the Dunk City days. Is he going to be able to, or are they going to be able to compete in this game? They're 5-0, but again, pretty much nobody they've played yet. Charlotte, North Carolina, Wesleyan, Radford. Radford's the one decent team, and they played well there. Wilmington, North Florida. This will be a step up for East Carolina, but I like Jaden Gardner. That's the guy you watch for on this Carolina team. Outstanding scorer, definitely their best offensive player. I remember he got injured a bit last year, and it wasn't the same East Carolina team. They better hope he stays healthy, but you can't always count on the supporting cast for this East Carolina team. SMU, Kendrick Davis, Farron Hunt, Charles Smith IV. Definitely a team that is very, very solid offensively. We've got them ranked as the 28th team offensive efficiency-wise in college basketball right now. Whereas you look at East Carolina and, their offense has improved. Their defense is dropped a little bit. I lean a little to the over because I think the offense will be there on both sides. The one concern is you're not going to get a great amount of pace from SMU. And even from the East Carolina team, they're only 197th in pace. So the pace, it's going to be a moderate pace for ECU when they have the ball. It's going to be a very slow pace when SMU has the ball. But the offensive efficiency for both teams has been really good right now. So that's why I would still lean a little bit to the over. And after SMU really dug in defensively to beat Dayton, I could see the defense just having one of those games where they're, not going through the motions, but they don't play as well, focus as well defensively coming into tonight. So a small bet for me over the total. Nothing on the side, but I'd be reluctant in this spot to lay these points with SMU. What's your thoughts, CMAC, with ECU SMU?
Yeah, this is kind of a difficult spot. I think SMU they cover here. This is one that I kind of left off right at the end. I'm not very impressed with East Carolina. Like, you're right, they haven't played anybody. And it was a good win. I mean, it's at Dayton, but, Dayton's not what they were last year with that team that was so good, still good basketball team. I lean a little bit with you. I just have leans here with the over and the -12 because East Carolina is just a very middle of the road to me. I don't know if they can go in and cover. I just don't like the number 12. Just seems a little skewed, so I passed here.
All right, a pass on ECU, SMU. Tennessee Tech, Jacksonville State. We've got the Jacksonville State 7-point home favorites here, 133 the total. I like Ray Harper a lot, but boy, he's got a Jacksonville State team that after some pretty good years in the OVC, competitive teams, good teams, not quite as good this year, down a little bit at 4-2. But again, the two losses they had were, Alabama, FIU, and you look at the other wins, they haven't beaten anybody of quality really this year, Jacksonville State. Now, this is one of those situations, we've talked about this, and I've hammered these points home, where, again, Jacksonville State beat Tennessee Tech 73-67. They played on Sunday, and now these same two teams playing each other again today in a rematch. And Jacksonville State, to me, has really, really had trouble consistently at the offensive end this season. And to me, even on the defensive end, this is not that they've hung their hat on defense the last few years, Jacksonville State, especially when they've had opportunities to beat Murray State and Belmont and step up in class against the top teams in the conference. It's their defense that's carried them. Defense isn't quite as strong this year for Jacksonville State. And in these rematch situations, the trend has been so strong where, for the most part, it hasn't always worked out. Like, it didn't work out with Longwood yesterday, for instance. But teams that are playing the second of back-to-backs against the same team, you prefer to look or make a case for the team that lost the first game of the back-to-back. And, of course, that would be Tennessee Tech here in this game against Jacksonville State. So I'm leaning definitely to Tennessee Tech. I might add it as a play here, getting +7 in this game against Jacksonville State. I think they got a chance to bounce back and keep this game tight. I lean to the Tennessee Tech. Even though they're 0-6, it's been a rough start, without a doubt, for this Tennessee Tech team under John Pelfrey. But again, some very close losses. Look at the last few: 9 to Northern Kentucky, 8 to Chattanooga, lost by 1 in overtime against Western Carolina, by 6 against Jacksonville State in the first meeting. If they lose by 6 tonight, Tennessee Tech, and I think you're going to get an even better effort from them because they lost the first game. But if they lose by 6 tonight, it cashes a ticket. So I'm going to be on, I think, Tennessee Tech here, +7 in this game. What do you think, Connor?
Yeah, I'm leaning that way too. I know they're on 6, but they, like you just named off, 9-point loss to Kentucky, Western Carolina. I mean, you got to feel pretty good if you lost just by 6 to this team. Yeah, you're right there. So I definitely do it. I think this might make my card too. When we're done here, I'm going to go over it a little bit more, but I got to lean Tennessee Tech +7 as well. Who knows if they'll win? But you got to like that they played 6, and who knows? They're due maybe for a win, hopefully. Yep. The teams start going like this, the kids start, we want a W. We want to, they want to put a good effort in and get a win, and they just lost by 6. So I like the trend. I think maybe if they don't win, they keep this close. So I like it as well with +7, Tennessee Tech.
All right, we both like Tennessee Tech here getting the points. Duke and Notre Dame, ACC showdown here. Duke 3-point favorites on the road in South Bend, 146.5 the total in this one. And certainly we know the issues with Duke because we've talked about Duke in the past, about Coach K belly aching, about whether the season should still be progressing, just the timing of it after he got his team clobbered by Illinois. He picks that time to basically say that, hey, maybe we should put a pause on the season here. But look, this is what you're getting from Duke. Coppin State, they won but only by 10 against Coppin State. Right when I saw that, I'm like, whoa, they only beat Coppin State 10 at home. Wow. And then they beat Bellarmine. Okay, but a newbie to Division I, that Bellarmine team that they beat. And then, of course, the step-up games, albeit Michigan State and Illinois, are obviously Final Four contenders this year, but they didn't play well in either game, and especially the loss to Illinois. Notre Dame, you would have thought, or if you gave me this point spread like before the season, I would have said Duke looks pretty cheap here, -3.
Yeah.
Notre Dame is, and this is Mike Bray. This is all Mike Bray because this team,
I agree,
they're going to be down this year. Other than Prentice Hub, there's a lot of new faces on this Notre Dame roster this year. They'd be down a little bit. They'd be a middle tier to maybe even bottom tier ACC team, and yet lost only by 10 to Michigan State on the road, lost by 5 to Ohio State, and Ohio State was expected to be better than Notre Dame. They go on the road, and Kentucky struggling, but Duke's in the same boat. And Kentucky, they go on the road and beat the Wildcats 64-63 on Saturday. Notre Dame has always been tough, especially at home here against Duke. So I like Notre Dame here. I got +4, and the numbers just come down even more since then, 3.5. I think Notre Dame's right in this game. Worst case scenario, a one-possession game either way, and they have a chance to win it. And I'm going to dare Duke, who's clearly got issues right now. This doesn't look like a team that's got that. Where's that RJ Barrett? Where's that dominant player that they've had? Zion Williamson. Where is that guy this year for Duke? And we're not seeing it right now. And they've had some issues really at both ends of the floor. Notre Dame, to me, I think there's actually some value over because Coach K's talked about getting the offense going and trying to get out of this grind and these slower paced games that they've been playing. So I have a small play on the over as well, a little bit more on Notre Dame, but I like Notre Dame in the over here in this one. What do you think, Connor? Duke, Notre Dame?
Yeah, I'm with you. I know people, but I've watched them, these games, Duke's games, the Michigan State, Illinois, the whole game. They're having a hard time scoring. They can't shoot the three well right now. I think they get better as the year goes on. But I know people are like, Duke, this is a cheap spot for Duke, but I don't know if this is the spot they get right. And like you said, just Mike Bray, the great job he's done. Notre Dame a little down this year, lost by 10 to Michigan State, was hanging around in that game. But what was the other ones here? Sorry. They beat I wanted to give
Notre Dame?
Yeah, they lost to Ohio State, by 5.
They beat Kentucky, yep. And
then beat Kentucky. So I think of this one. I think Duke gets better. I just don't want it here. I know I've talked to a few people that like Duke, think it's cheap. I just don't think on the road. They're still young. And like I said, for a Duke team, they can't shoot the ball very well. No. The 3-point shots just haven't been going in. And on the other side, the defense just isn't that great. I think I've been struggling with, if Duke scores, this goes over. I'm a little leery of it. Right away, I kind of like the over. But I don't think I'm going to play that. But I like Notre Dame until, I see Notre Dame maybe slip and Duke play better. Give me the 4 and take a little piece money line, if you like Notre Dame here. I just, this team right now shouldn't be laying, even though it's 3.5 on the road at Notre Dame. I don't think, we'll see. I think they get better. I think Coach K, they start playing better as the year goes on, but not tonight. I'll go with Notre Dame.
You know what'll happen with Duke, and you know what'll happen with Kentucky. They will play better as the season goes on and get better. However, I have doubts whether they've got the same level of talent to be that true tournament contender this year with both of them. They'll get better. I agree 100%. But whether they've got it, the horses this year, these two teams and programs specifically, still be those strong title contenders, I'm not so sure about that. And I think Duke may need one more game to get the ship righted, and I think that's Notre Dame's the way to go here. TCU, Oklahoma State, 5-point home favorites, 136 the total. Oklahoma State's not a team I'm going against. They've been the team I've been looking to back. I did lose with them against Wichita. I had -4. They won by 3 in that game, but that doesn't alter my opinion. Mike Boynton's doing a good job here with this Oklahoma State program. I love the freshman, Cade Cunningham, Isaac Likekele as well. This is a really good basketball team. They've been solid as well at the defensive end so far this season. How about the 44th ranked team in the country in terms of defense? That's a good sign as well for Oklahoma State. So is TCU as well. Very good at the defensive end of the court as well. I just think Oklahoma State's a little more polished, a little more options inside out balance offensively than TCU. The number's in a good spot. This feels like it could be Wichita again, where Oklahoma State wins, but it could be a one possession game. So I don't know if I love laying 5, but that would be the preferred way. I lean a little bit to Oklahoma State, but just a lean for me in this one. But a good matchup here in the Big 12. These are two teams. They're not contenders in the Big 12, but they're in that next group of teams after Baylor, after Kansas, after Texas, after Texas Tech. Then you've got this group of teams like TCU and Oklahoma State. But it should be a competitive game here. What do you think, Connor? TCU, Okie State.
Yeah, this is. I think this is competitive. I think if I had to, I like Oklahoma State a lot. I think they get better as the year goes on. I think TCU. I think 5's a little too much. 5.5. TCU's played pretty well. They lost by 4 to the Sooners. 9 to Providence. They beat A&M. They beat Liberty, Tulsa. I think it's good. I just think 5. The number's a little high. If I had to play it, I haven't. I'd lean TCU here in this. I think this could be a very close game, and I'd rather have 5 than lay 5 here. And on the total, I'd lean under. It's a tight game. TCU scored a bit more lately. So yeah, I don't have a play on that either. It's getting it's only it's 135.5. So.
All right, so definitely lean a little bit with the total there. UTEP, Arizona State, 13.5 point home favorites, 145.5 the total in this one. A real interesting game. Arizona State, obviously a team that's a lot's expected of them under Bobby Hurley. They're a fun team to watch, but they're not always a disciplined team. They're not always a smart basketball team. They turn the ball over a lot, but I like Remy Martin a ton. He's a senior. He's a great player on this team. Guard Alonzo Vergi, they got him back. Marcus Bagley as well to give them some punch inside. Yeah, there's a lot to like with Arizona State, but again, when it comes down to it, crux of the problem for Arizona State is always defensive stops consistently. Not always. That's why they lost to Villanova. That's why they lost to San Diego State for their 2 losses. Just didn't defend well enough. And the games that Arizona State struggles, teams that slow it down, teams that play good defense, well, guess what? Here comes Rodney Terry's UTEP group.
Yep.
Pretty solid defensively. They are not going to be in a rush tempo-wise. They're 253 in the country in terms of tempo. They've got the kind of team to make this game difficult style-wise on Arizona State, because Arizona State doesn't play well against these teams that slow it down and force them in the half court. They just don't play well in those games, and UTEP is going to have that style of play that they're going to try to impose on Arizona State tonight. Slow it down, force this team into the half court. Yeah, they've lost their 2 games against step-up-in-class teams. UTEP, they lost by 8 to Arizona, lost by 12 to St. Mary's, but reasonably competitive in both of them. You've got Arizona State, they barely beat Grand Canyon, and that's now 2 games in a row, by the way, that I bet against Arizona State. I was on San Diego State. I took the points with Grand Canyon against them, and they barely got out of there with the win, 71-70. It's an overvalued team. This is, again, a big home favorite on exam week with, distractions, writing finals, Christmas coming up, Pac-12 season coming up, laying a lot of points. Give me UTEP here, plus 13. We're going to go mining for profits tonight. Let's go. Let's get that pickaxe out. Mining for profits tonight with the miners of UTEP here, plus 13.5 here. I think they've got a chance to make this game a little bit more competitive than the point spread suggests. What do you think, Connor, with UTEP, Arizona State?
Me too. We were talking about this one, jumped out to me. I guess the book, they like Arizona State. The odds makers, they like Remy Martin. They like all of that. But I've been Utah the last 2 with St. Mary's, Arizona they covered. And I think 13.5 is just crazy here. I think they can keep this within 2 touchdowns for sure. And I'm kind of looking at the under a little bit. Arizona State doesn't play much defense. But the last few games, they've been a little bit low scoring. They beat Cal by 8. They beat Grand Canyon by 1. Those have gone under. And the slow pace you were talking about, clash of 2 styles here, real fast Arizona offense and slow it down. I think this could stay under 145.5. I don't know if I play it, though. I'm thinking about it. But, yeah, I'm on UTEP plus that 13.5, and I'm leaning on the under 145.5.
All right, this is the last game on the main board, Montana and Washington. A late start as well, 8 p.m. where you are, Connor, this game. 8 p.m. Pacific, Montana Grizzlies, Washington Huskies. Battle of the animals, I guess you could say here. 7-point home favorites, 132 the total in this one. And right away I'm looking Montana here because I don't trust Washington laying big points. And we know Montana, consistently been a solid team in, the Big Sky. And you're starting to look at a lot of these. If you've been keeping an eye on these Big Sky versus Pac-12 games, and you always have a lot of them. Big Sky plays a lot of non-conference games against the Pac-12. The Big Sky, I think, is winning ATS head-to-head against Pac-12 teams right now. We saw it last night with Eastern Washington against Arizona. Eastern Washington's covered a couple against Pac-12 teams. We've seen a couple. We've seen Montana cover a couple against Pac-12 teams. We've seen some other Big Sky teams cover against Pac-12 teams this year. I think Montana can. I'm going to dare. Like Washington did blow out Seattle. Seattle's had a ton of injury issues. They've just not a very good Seattle team overall. I don't know if that's a true sign that Mike Hopkins' team is turning a corner. I'm not so sure that's the case. The problem with Washington this year is their defense is nowhere near as good as it's been in the past so far. And their offense has also slumped a little bit. And I find they rely way too much. You look at the team overall, if Quade Green doesn't score consistently for Washington, they don't get a whole lot of contributions elsewhere with this basketball team. And that's a problem here, I think, a little bit here against this Montana Grizzlies team. Again, Montana has shown the ability at times to step up against some of these teams in the past. So to me, I'm looking at this as a situation where I'd look to take the points here with Montana getting 7.5 in this one. What do you think, CMAC, Montana, Washington?
Yeah, that was my initial look on Montana. I've had them a few games, this year. I think they look pretty good. I don't know if they turn a corner. We're talking about Washington. They beat Seattle real good, and then they barely lost to Oregon, 74-71. I think the number's right on. I lean Montana. I'm a little skeptical. It was Washington maybe playing better and turning, because those first 3 or 4 games were bad. They didn't, and I still think they have trouble scoring at times. They will. Maybe they've corrected. The last 2 games they've been a lot better. Yeah, tough one here. I'd lean with Montana. I've looked at this one a lot today too, so just a lean right now. Maybe I'll get there tonight. I don't know.
And you talk about, and I think spot plays and just betting based on the schedule and the situation are a little overrated. But, this game's in between Oregon this past weekend for Washington and Colorado, another conference game coming up, a good Colorado team. So you worry about this spot, that this is a little bit of a, sandwich spot, that they're not really focused fully on Montana, looking ahead to Colorado. So that's just another little check mark that makes you say, hey, maybe Montana's in this. And Montana's a solid enough basketball team, I think, this year and be able to hang within this number. So that's where I'm going with the Montana side plus 7.5. So that is the main card. We've gotten through it all. Now we're going to just briefly give any leans and opinions we have on the added board, and then we'll get to best bets to wrap up the show. Added board, I'll quickly just run down what I'm looking at. I'm on Grambling plus 7.5 against Monroe, because these are 2 bad teams, and Monroe is almost as bad as Grambling, and they're the ones laying 7.5, and I don't trust them laying that many points. So that's an ugly game, but I think Grambling plus 7.5 the way I would go. And there's a few overs I like on the added board tonight. I like Asheville Chattanooga over the total. Chattanooga playing really fast. Asheville above average offensively. The point guard may not play for Asheville tonight, so that's a bit of a concern. Their starting point guard, but I still like over 147 there. FIU, Florida Gulf Coast, another over there. FIU, blistering pace. Florida Gulf Coast is actually starting to speed it up again this year. Remember, they played fast under Enfield. They slowed down a bit for a few years, and now they're starting to get the pace, and their offense is a little bit better this year as well. So I think that game goes over 143.5. Also, I'm on Kennesaw Belmont over. Belmont might get to a 90 or 100 by themselves in this game against Kennesaw. Kennesaw is a bottom tier defense. That's bad against this Belmont team. I know Rick Bird's gone, but Casey Alexander steps in, and they're still running the same beautiful offense that you come to expect from the Belmont Bruins. I think they get 90 by themselves probably. Can you get at least 50 some from Kennesaw, get you over the total? I think you can. So I like Kennesaw Belmont over. Sam Houston Texas, there's another over, because Texas, they'll get out and run tonight, because Sam Houston loves to speed it up. And I find that Texas, sometimes when they play these real up-tempo teams, they don't mind playing full court. Sometimes Shaka Smart, and I don't get it. He's got one of the most athletic, great offensive teams, inside, outside. Ramey, he's got lots of size in the low post. You've got guys that can score this year. When you're playing a team that wants to run fast, don't slow it down. Go with them.
Yeah,
I agree. I think Texas will do that tonight against Sam Houston State and get up and over the total in that game. New Orleans LSU is the last over that I bet as well. Another game where you've got LSU plays pretty up-tempo basketball. So does the New Orleans Privateers. So I think you get that over as well. So that's my looks on the added board. Connor, the floor is yours. Added board. What did you take a look at?
Well, first one this morning, we talked about how those back and forth. It was on St. Francis. I just said I'll take the 3.5, and Central won today. Won pretty handily. So that was one. We talk about these games. They play back-to-back days.
Central Connecticut.
The early one. Yeah, Central Connecticut, which I said wasn't a bad team. I just was high on, and worked out. Nothing always does there, but kind of our thing that we were talking about yesterday with these teams playing back to back, within days. I like you on the over in the Florida International, Florida Gulf Coast. And I like the over in the Sam Houston, Texas as well. And I'm looking now at that Belmont. You might be right. If Kennesaw can get 55 or 60, I think that might go over as well. And I looked a little bit at UAB, but it's a little high at minus 15 against Southern A&M there. So those are all kind of leans. I'm still looking at those. I haven't locked them in yet. So that's it.
There you go. All right. So just some leans there from the added board for Connor. All right. Before we get to best bets, Connor, let's take care of the sponsors and the promos now. What do we got?
Oh, yeah. Well, let's go to my bookie, AG. If you need a book to go to, enter promo code PubSports. If you use debit or credit, they'll match you 50%. If you do Bitcoin, they'll match you 100%. Just put $1,000. They give you $1,000. Like we said, everyone in the chat, everyone here, you all bet. So definitely, you got to have at least 3 books, I think, to get number wise. You don't want 1 or 2. At least have a few different options on. In the long run, it'll win a point or 2, like we talked about. Look at me last night. I won by a half a point, and I lost to the Utah Valley by 2 points, and the other one by 1.5. So get the best number you can, and then go to bulksupplements.com. It's great. They give you 5-10%, get jacked up for the fall. And then I'll throw in our football because it's our guys there too. Check out Wolf Spreads. Download the app. It's super fun. You get 2K, kind of funny money, and you get to bet. You get Pub Sports Radio, Battle Royale. And at the end of the week, if you win, have all of it, you get a whole sweatshirt, shirts, all the stuff from Pub Sports Radio merchandise. So it's a lot of fun to do that. And you can bet one game, one huge dog, or bet the board kind of all through. You get 2K. So go there, guys, and get it. That's it.
There you go. All right, best bet. Let's start with you, C-Mac. Where are you going for a best bet on this Wednesday slate?
I'm going with one that we're both on, and I liked it. It's just too many points. Was UTEP getting 13.5. That was kind of the biggest one. I always like the ones that, like, right when I look at this card, like in the morning and stuff, that jump out to me. And then as more I look at it, I like. So I'm going to go with UTEP there, the Miners. So, yeah, 13.5 with them.
All right, UTEP plus 13.5, and I'm on that one as well. UTEP, not for best bet, but just on them. Yeah, mine and for units here with UTEP. I'm going to go the total worked for me yesterday. Hawks from Monmouth, best bet over. That flew over the total with plenty of room to spare.
Yeah.
I like those. I like it when it's an easy one like that. Hopefully we can get another best bet winner today. I'm going to go with another total, and it's one of the games on the added board that we just talked about. I'm going to go with Sam Houston State and Texas over the total.
We're both on that. Okay.
140. Let me see what the best number is. 143. Let's give a number that's still available. Yes, 143 current number with that total. Again, Texas they have way more offensive weapons than they've had in the past. They've always been pretty solid defensively, but I think they're going to welcome the opportunity here after they played some tough competition, tough teams, grinded out affairs. You play an outman Sam Houston State. You really flex your muscles. You welcome. Sam Houston State's going to go up and down the court. Texas doesn't often play that way, but I think they will tonight because of the fact that they can outman Sam Houston in a full court style of game, and they'll probably be able to score as much as they want. And Sam Houston, still a capable enough offensive team that they can contribute even against what can be a stifling Texas D. So I like this Sam Houston State, Texas over 143. We're going to go with that for my best bet on this Wednesday. I
like it. You know what? And all we need is this game. They played LSU, Sam Houston State. At 88-66. I could see that. And that's over by 10 points. Something similar like that. That's why I liked it as well. So I like it, brother.
All right, so there we go. UTEP for Connor, and for me, it's Sam Houston State, Texas over. Those are our best bets for the Wednesday card, and that'll wrap up this edition of the Pub Sports Radio College Basketball Closing Time Show. That's going to be it for this week's shows during the week, but we're going to be back Tuesdays and Wednesdays for the next 2 weeks, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific with this show. Reminder that we are back Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. I'm looking forward to that show. It's our college football closing time show. Ready for conference championship Saturday. We'll talk all the conference championships, Big 10, Big 12, SEC, ACC, AAC. They're all going to be Sun Belt. Don't forget Coastal Carolina Lafayette on Saturday as well. So we'll talk about all the college football games Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. We'll do college football on the Saturdays for the next couple of weeks, and then it'll gradually turn into a college basketball show on the Saturday mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. So that's a wrap for this edition of the college basketball closing time show. The next weekday version of this show will be next Tuesday, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. Remember, and the reason why is if you look at the card in college basketball or the schedule for tomorrow and Friday, very limited number of games. So we're back Tuesday with the next edition of the college basketball closing time show. For Connor, Mac, I'm Ian Cameron. Have a great Wednesday night. Let's cash some tickets. Enjoy the games and good luck. Back next Tuesday on the college basketball closing time show and Saturday with the college football closing time show. Have a good